Welcome to Zoom number 3. We're so excited that this just got off the ground and it's staying off the ground. All right, Emily, I'm going to stop fussing with participants and admissions and let you take care of that while I'm talking. And so first of all, hi, welcome. I'm Sean Sheehy. I'm the director of the Movable Book Society and your co-host this evening. And I am working along with Emily Martin, co-host. Emily, want to say any words about yourself?
Nope. Hi. I continue to practice my my Zoom skills, and when I'm not doing that, I make artist books and I teach at the University of Iowa. So I'm going to go back to admitting people.
Sweet. Our chat feed this afternoon / evening / early afternoon, depending on where you are, is being managed and monitored by Kyra Hicks. Kyra, do you want to say a couple of words about yourself?
Certainly. I am here from Arlington, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. Excited to be on here with over at 110 people from around the world. I see Germany, I see Peru, I see Chile. This is so exciting, and I hope just to type away and provide links.
Sweet.
Sweet.
Okay, so I don't know if all of you know this, but just a quick aside while Kyra's face is on the screen. You know, she edited a book for us called The Movable Book Society Meckendorfer Awards, celebrating paper engineers, book artists, and pop-up books, 1998 to 2008, which I believe she is walking over to grab a copy of so she can show you what the cover of that book looks like on your screen. It's a terrific book, everybody, and it's a great piece of data in case you want to see who's been winning awards for the past umpteen years. Super. Okay, then we've got 5 presenters today, and we're excuse me, going to be happy to welcome questions. And if you've got questions during the presentation, type them into the chat feed, and we will go to that source to grab questions for after presentations are over. I believe that's all that I want to say in advance, with the exception, of course, again, that if you'd be so kind as to put your name and your location, generally, if you want to, country or city or whatever, in the chat feed, and maybe also rename yourself so we can see where everyone is from, because we love to see that. If we're going to be taking some screenshots today to use for our page on the website for these Zoom events. So if you don't want your face to be showing, stop your video and that'll take care of that. And we're going to jump right in. And our first presenter today is Helen Hiebert. I've known Helen for a super long time. I'm going to hold in front of my face one of the books that Helen made, of the many books that Helen made. And it's not the first Helen book that I bought, because the first Helen book I bought was Papermaking with Plants, and that was when I was in grad school and I was making paper with plants. And so it was a very useful document. This one is super special to me because Helen asked me to participate. So Helen also, one of her big claims to fame is she was on Sesame Street once. So that's pretty cool. Helen's got a papermaking studio in Colorado. She makes beautiful artist books. She's going to talk to you today about some things. Helen, let's go.
Okay, hi everybody. Let me get this. I'm going to show you a video and then I'll take questions afterwards. So this is about 9.5 minutes.
Hi everyone, it's Helen Hiebert. Welcome to my studio in Colorado's Rocky Mountains. I'm right outside of Vail ski country. And we're getting a big snowstorm tonight, and I'm worried I won't be able to get up here tomorrow, so I'm recording this. So I make paper. We all use it, right? But I make it. So I wanted to show you a couple of things and a couple of ways that I work with paper and paper engineering. So the first thing is to beat the pulp. So I am working usually with abaca, which comes from the banana plant, or cotton, just like clothing is made from. And these are pre-processed fibers that I get from suppliers. And then I put them into my Hollander beater, which you see here, with a lot of water, and they get literally beaten to a pulp. So here are my pulps. This is the abaca, and this is the cotton, and I'm going to show you how I use those. You can get a close-up of my watermark screen. I'm going to show you how to make a watermark. And then this is just, will be a plain sheet. So a watermark is a design within the sheet of paper. And I'll show you a dry sheet too. So I stir up the vat. Watermarks work really well with the cotton. And this is a thin rubber material that I cut out on a Cricut Maker and it has an adhesive on the back. So I'm able to just adhere it to my paper making mold. I've got the decal that I put on top that controls the shape and size of my sheet and thickness. And then when I dip in, this will poke up into the sheet and make an image. So I shake to get the fibers really evenly distributed over the watermark design. And so again, that's poking up in there. So the sheet of paper will actually be thinner where the watermark design is and thicker everywhere else. And so the water's drained. That's the principle of paper making. The pulp sits on top, the water drains through the screen. So my sheet of paper has drained, and surface tension holds it on the screen, and I'm going to couch or transfer it onto a felt. So this is a wet felt. And I simply lay it down, apply pressure on the back, lift up, and there's my watermark sheet. I'll show you a dry sheet in a moment, but you can really see how the paper is thinner and thicker. And then I can reuse this and make multiples. Now here I've already couched a sheet of the abaca. It looks similar to the cotton, but abaca is more translucent. Cotton is opaque. And I want to show you what I do with abaca. I make something called bendable paper. So this is wire, copper wire, that I embed in between two sheets so that I can then bend the wire and the sheet of paper stays. So I usually add a few more, but I'm going to just space these out. Now I've got a second sheet over here. So I'll put this right on top. So this is called embedding. This is another technique. So you can embed all kinds of materials between two sheets. So I can actually put another felt and more layers of paper, and I make a whole stack called a post. And then I take them over here and put them in the press, which is powered by a hydraulic jack that you can see underneath those felts barely. And I squeeze out the water, not all of it, but a lot of it. Then the sheets are handleable, and I can lift them off the felts and put them into these two drying systems where they dry flat in between blotters. Now let's take a look at the dry sheets. So here's the watermark. So you see it's not as visible when it's not illuminated, but when you lift the page in a book or put this on a lamp or a lantern, it becomes visible. And I didn't demonstrate this, but this is another way to use the watermark. I actually made a white sheet that I couched on my felt, and then I made a very thin sheet of this pink that slipped off of the watermark. And then I laminated the two together. So you see the design without illumination. Here's another one. This is for a book project I'll show you in a moment. And then here's that tangram design. And then here's that sheet of abaca. Well, this is a different sheet, and this was made on a larger screen, but with the copper wire. So this is how it dries. I do not put this flat in the drying system. I could, but I like to let it air dry. This particular fiber shrinks a lot as it dries and creates these interesting forms. But then I can further manipulate it to create anything. Here's a lamp. So this has embedded washers. So when I embedded the wire, I also embedded the washers. And then I made 2 or 3 sheets. I'm seeing there's a seam here. So I had to run this through the sewing machine to connect the sheets. This is a lamp. There's a light bulb. And create vessels. So here I make artist books also. So I just wanted to show you a couple. This is letterpress printed on handmade cotton paper with the watermark. You can barely see it here, but this is that one sheet book structure, and I've incorporated watermarks in that central panel so they illuminate, and the text actually explains how to make the watermark using that technique I just showed you. So it's illustrated with the watermark within the book. Then I produced one other in a similar fashion. This is also one sheet of paper with, this is a pulp stenciling technique, sort of like those colored sheets I just showed you. I actually put tape, strapping tape, waterproof tape on my screen just in a certain area so that I got this imagery that would be visible through this window. And then I worked with the poet Carl Adamschick. He wrote a poem that relates to that imagery, and this is laser cut. This is my artist book Tangential, and this has that same pulp stenciling technique. So this is not printed. The design is that watermarking double layer of paper. And then this is letterpress printed. And I am fascinated with, as many of you are, with going from 2 into 3 dimensions. So I've illustrated all of the hedrons, not all of them, but starting with the tetrahedron. I don't know if you've seen the book Euclid's Geometry, where it's an old book. I looked at that book it's from 1570, and it had little shapes that you could fold up so you could explore the geometry. So the text here tells you how this form is created, and I decided to leave it within the pages of the book so that you fold it up and then you unfold it to turn the page, and there's no tabs or anything, so it's more about the idea of the shape. And I find it fascinating that Euclid actually lived before paper. So how did he just draw these in the sand? Did he make them in papyrus or out of some other material? And this is, again, all handmade paper, so this color is paper pulp. So it goes all the way up to the icosahedron, the 20-sided shape. In case you don't know, I write how-to books about paper making and paper crafts. Some of you are featured in my book, Playing with Pop-Ups. I have a new book coming out in about a year, featuring projects you can make with one sheet of paper. I'm really fascinated with that. I also write a weekly blog called The Sunday Paper. I invite you to subscribe or to send me what you're up to. I'll put it on the blog. I feature what other artists are doing. And I do a podcast called Paper Talk. Comes out once every 3 weeks. And again, if you're interested in being interviewed or know someone who should be on the podcast, feel free to reach out. So I look forward to seeing you online and in person at the next conference that we can be together at. Thanks for stopping by the studio.
Hey, thanks for watching.
Thanks, Helen.
Yeah.
It looks like we had some video issues in there.
Oh, bummer.
Not sure what. There were some volume things, and I did see your messages, friends, about not being able to hear.
Sorry.
I don't think it was throughout.
Okay.
Just a couple spots here and there. So what we may need to do, Helen, is we just take that video and we'll include it as an additional when I send out.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
So everyone can do a re-listen. Yeah, yeah. But let me take a look at our list.
I see one question. The book is called Tangential.
And
Did
you also mentioned the Euclid book that you were working.
Oh yeah,
There was
I believe it's called Euclid's Elements of Geometry. You
so-
can contact me if you want to. There were several editions, and the one I looked at was published in 1570.
Here it is.
There it is.
Yeah, thank you.
Yours is better because the pieces don't come out. They're
Right.
The book I looked at was all torn up from a lot of use, but
And
they were attached.
Kyra's been putting in links to Helen's website and names of her various how-tos. One of the times where the sound was really low, Helen, was when you were talking about the books that your how-to books.
Okay,
And are they all listed on your website?
they are all on my website, and I did send Kyra a link for that. They're also all on Amazon, so it just search for my name, how-to books, something like that. I don't know exactly what.
Yeah, they'll find you.
There's 5. I have 5.
And a question, Helen, about how you design your watermarks.
I don't know what you mean exactly by design. I on Adobe Illustrator. Is that what you mean, Paula? And I am not good at that. So I usually sketch out a design or photocopy something, and I have someone help me.
Super. I'm going to jump up for a quick second, and I'm going to mute everybody again. We had a few people that unmuted, and we heard some stray sound in there. So everyone has been muted again. So if you're supposed to be talking in a second, quick unmute yourself because we need to hear you. We need to hear you. Of course, that applies specifically to Ellen. It looks like Ellen is unmuted, so that's great. And let's roll. For sure, if you've got extra questions for Helen, her contact information is on her website, and that's in the link list, and she'd be happy to respond to you. She also teaches tons of workshops. It's super fun, totally recommended. So Ellen, who is wearing her pop-up lady shirt, and she is standing there in her library at home in Scarsdale, New York. And you know, Helen is one of the founding board members of the Movable Book Society. She's been in it from the very first moment, I believe. And she has an amazing collection. You know, you're seeing a tiny, tiny fraction of it beyond her shoulders right there, including a lot of super cool, oldie, valuable, rare, cool stuff. So it's a real treat to get a sneak peek at her collection. Also, you know, in terms of fancy, maybe unknown things about our speakers, Ellen's been featured on Atlas Obscura, as is her library. So that might be something fun for you to look up, or for Kyra to look up and throw in the list for you to take a peek at. Ellen, I think that's everything that I wanted to say about you before you introduce your video. So go.
Hi, welcome everyone. I'm so glad you're here. I will welcome you on the video. It's in 3 parts. The next part will be in February, when I will start with a Ramon Lull book. He was a 13th century mystic. But this time you will see the library and just 3 books. So Emily, roll tape.
Hello, I am Ellen G.K. Rubin, aka the Pop-Up Lady, and I am standing here in my purposefully built library, housing most of my pop-up book collection. I'm going to be talking to you today about my pre-1800 books. But before I do that, so many of you have been curious about the library itself. I'm going to take just a moment to show you the library. It has UV protected windows to keep the sunlight out. Most of the books are behind glass to keep the dust out. There are 2 radiators in this room. This is a 90-year-old house, and the radiators are insulated so that the intense heat does not touch the books and dry up the glue. And most pop-up books are glued. Dry the glue and they pop up by themselves. All of the wood has been treated for off-gassing, and so that's really the best I could do in a privately housed library. There is another room which has my office and my reference library, and very dear to me are the 35-inch 3-ring binders that house the movable ephemera collection. In a den downstairs are the oversized books. And that's, again, the best I can do. I am not a librarian. My background, as many of you know, is in science and medicine. So here is the cursory view of the library. I'll start showing you the library here at this end with some of the older books. The bottom bank houses the foreign language books. I have 41 languages, including Braille, Arabic, Icelandic, and of course many, many others. Every shelf has a brass plate with a number, and those numbers refer to which books are on that shelf, and I have that on my online catalog, which I use FileMaker Pro. I take a little space here for some paper engineers who have been kind enough to share their mock-ups with me. I am very interested in process and like to show, especially when I do exhibitions, I like to show how these books come about. The original artwork, the ideas, the mock-ups, the nesting sheets, everything that goes to the finished product. The smaller drawers, of course, hold smaller items. I am fortunate enough to have original art, and that original art helps me tell the story. Some shelves have series books, like the Hallmark series or the Random House series. The Disney books are put together. Bible stories are together. And this cabinet holds the Kubashta collection, which is the largest single paper engineer that I have. This buffet of open shelves have the artist books and books that are self-preserved. And in the center is this rolling map drawer. And if I open the top drawer for you, these are the oldest books which I will be showing you today. And like Andrew suggested at the last Zoom conference, most of them are in archival boxes or are wrapped in archival foldable wrappers. And that is my library. I would be cheating you if I didn't show you the Astronomicon Caesarium. This is not the original. I've been collecting for over 30 years and have watched the original go from $500,000 to over $1.25 million. But fortunately, McGraw-Hill in 1969 printed this facsimile. They literally took apart a book and scanned every page. And the Astronomicum Caesarium, certainly the most beautiful movable book ever printed. Appianus, an astronomer, printed it for Charles V, who richly rewarded him. And one of his rewards is that he was given the right to legitimize illegitimate children. I guess that was a big thing then. In the original, there would be pearls along these strings as place markers. So if you ever have the opportunity to see the original, if we ever get back to book shows and one is for sale, the merchant would be happy to show it to you, and you will be so happy to see it. It truly is spectacular. Done in 1540, all hand-colored. Enjoy. I'm going to start off my presentation of my pre-1800 books with the oldest book in the collection, and it is from 1547, and it houses 3 books. 2 are by Sacrobosco, and he was a 13th century astronomer and educator. The book is blind stamped vellum, which has these very beautiful engraved brass brackets, which I do not open and close. And so the first book in it is not by Sacrobosco, but it is very heavily annotated. A lot of marginalia, which I love to see because that just tells me how much the reader was involved in the book. There are 2 books by Sacrobosco in here, and the astronomy that he is explaining is from the Ptolemaic era, where the belief was that the sun revolved around the earth. And you'll see depictions of the earth. They very much believed that the earth was round. And so there's these very delicate pointers. The book is in Latin. I don't speak Latin. I don't speak anything else but English. Sorry to tell you that. And I call your attention to this illustration, which is in all the editions of the Sacrobosco. And I've mentioned that I love process. Well, I was fortunate enough to find a woodblock from the era of that illustration. It has been authenticated for me that it is quite old and was used in one of the editions of the Sphera. And here is another Volvel. Beautiful printed button covering the linen knot. Let me see what's behind it. Nothing. You cannot see how the linen knot is holding that in there. Well, how do the Volvels get printed? This is another Sphera, and it's an emendata, meaning that it corrects a previous edition, and it's from 1574, and here is that illustration in another size. But here are the Volvels in situ. They are printed right on the page, and it was expected of the owner or the printer to cut them out and assemble them. Curiously, there was printing on the back, which of course meant when you cut out the Volvel, you lost the printing. But that's how it was done. Next is another astronomy book by Peter Appianus, who did the Astronomicum Caesarium. This is a modern binding, but it is from 1584. And Appianas love to use strings to measure. And we have the movement here. And another, much more complicated. Don't ask me what all of these are used for. I would only embarrass myself. But the volvels were measuring objects. And as you can well see, the definition of a volvel comes from the French, meaning to turn. And it is a wheel or several wheels of paper affixed to a central spot. There's a little linen knot here. And it either has a die cut hole or an arrow, or in this case, both, so that the information on the base pages can come through. Unlike the Sfera, this has a decorated little button on the back that hides the knot.
So
Well, that's the T.
February for the next installment.
Right, you have to go to the next installment, which will be in February, and I will continue from there, and happy to take questions. And I would be very happy if I'll be able to answer them.
I think you've got this first one covered, Ellen. At least you're gonna have a good guess for it. The question is, how many Kubashta books do you have?
Including original art, over 1,000.
You asked, Joy, you asked.
I've
But
been,
that includes, talk about what else that includes, Ellen, in terms of ephemera.
the collection or the Kubashta?
Kubashta specifically, yeah.
Specifically, those of you who know any of Kubashta's work know that he did several Walt Disney books, which, like other Walt Disney illustrators, he was not to put his name on. And there was another one that Walt Disney did not accept. It was one done on Donald Duck. And I've just acquired the mock-up. And that is all hand done. And it is so exciting for me to put my hands on the actual pages that Kubashta colored by hand. It's not complete like many other mock-ups. He was making it as a proposal. So there are 2 or 3 movables. The rest is blank. The cover is all hand done. If I were in another room, I could pull it out and show it, but that has been a wonderful addition to the collection. There is I also collect his flat books. That's how I get to 1,000, because if he did illustrations, there are magazines that he did in great numbers during the communist era, which are very impressive because there's no dumbing down when you see these magazines that were meant for teenagers and the equations and things that he put in it. It's very impressive. So I have that as ephemera. One of the books that he did, a flat book, I have the color illustrations. The book was never published in color. It's only published in black and white. And whenever I do an exhibition, I make sure I put them out there because we're the only ones who are ever going to see it, since the book was never published in color. So I remain very, very passionate about his work.
Raz asks, how much of that Kubashta collection is same book, different language?
I couldn't give you a number on that unless I went to my catalog. But for example, I probably have 5 Snow Whites in different languages. he was published in about 27 languages, but not every book made it into all of those languages. But when I find an unusual, what I consider an unusual language or a new language, I will try to acquire it.
Okay, so I would ask for the 50-word answer to the next question, because this is our last question and we got to move on. And it's a huge question, but we'll ask it. 50 words, choose carefully. When and why did you start your collection?
In the 1970s, when I had my two sons, I found two Random House books that were pop-ups. I never saw a pop-up before, ever. While I was an avid reader as a child, I never saw a pop-up book. And I was very excited. I called my best friend, who was a book dealer, and she said, let's collect them together. Her for inventory, mine for my collection. And so we traveled, best friends, looking for books.
Excellent. Ellen, thanks so much. Thanks so much. Remember, everybody, that was installment number 1 of 3. We're going to hear more from Ellen in February and then again in May. Thanks, 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 thanks. And I'm going to hear next from Larry Rakow. And Larry is the proprietor of Wonderland 100 Books. He's a dealer and he works in rare and children's literature and antiquarian and all sorts of good stuff. And I believe the first time that I saw Cleveland Heights, yes. And I think the first time that I saw Larry present was at the Movable Book Society, where his presentation actually was on the topic of magic lanterns and stereoscopic books. And he had a costume or some costume components at least. It was very exciting. And Larry's got a lot in his head and he's going to share just a tiny couple of crumbs of it with you now. So Larry, I'm going to spotlight you and it's all you.
Hey, Sean. Thank you. Yeah, that was in Washington. That was the Movable Book Society in Washington, and that was great fun. Hi, everyone. As Sean said, I'm Larry Rakow. I'm the proprietor of Wonderland Books in Cleveland Heights, Ohio. And when we first started talking about this, we thought that I'd just give you a preview of a new catalog that I have online, but really wasn't what I wanted to do. I will tell you that Wonderland Books every 6 months or so puts up 100 new remarkable books that you haven't seen before. And this time around, the 100 that we just posted this last Monday are all pop-up, movable, and novelty books, ranging from wonderful Victorian books all the way through the work of contemporary pop-up masters. So if you have not taken a look and that interests you at all, then you might want to. It is www.wonderland100, those are numerals, 100.com. And that's all I'm going to say about the website. What I really want to talk about today is just a little bit of collecting books. I know that everyone has an interest in getting wonderful examples of pop-ups, either true collectors who obsessively collect this sort of thing, or the rest of you who may just love pop-up books and want a couple of examples to show with friends to share your enthusiasms. But there are certain basic laws of collecting, and especially putting together a collection of really exciting pop-up and movable books. And that's what I want to talk about today. So I'm going to attempt, hopefully with better success, to share my screen. And let me see, I've never done this before. So once again, let us take a look. Ooh, does that appear to be working? Okay, good. Book collecting 101 for the rest of us. And all I want to talk about are two essential things. I could talk, as Sean well knows, for hours about this sort of thing, about how to shape a collection and how to deal with dealers and what things to collect and how to take care of your books. But we're not going to do that today. We are just going to talk about two essential things about putting a collection together. I know that everybody here knows the old saw about what makes a property valuable. There are three things and only three things that make property valuable, and that is the location, location, and location. And in the same way, when we're talking about books, oh my, here we go. What makes a book valuable? The only three things. Oh my, I will tell you if this does not come up. Sean, this appears to be the same problem.
Huh.
This is very odd because it worked like a charm yesterday.
Of course.
And I am total, oh, and those three things are condition, condition, condition. Unless this speeds up in some way, I'm just going to talk things through.
Totally fine.
What are the four things that you really have to consider in terms of the condition of books? There are generally four things that booksellers and book collectors talk about. And those are books in fine, very good, good, or poor condition. Sometimes there's a fifth that's inserted between good and poor, and that's fair, but we'll just deal with these four right now. What do we mean when we talk about a book in fine condition? Well, it's not necessarily one that, you know, goes to the book, when you go to a bookstore and pick a book off the shelf, that would be, you know, as new, but a fine book is almost new. It may have been opened, leafed through, enjoyed, but there is absolutely no major damage, nothing that takes away from the integrity of the book. If it had a book jacket, it still has it. All the pages are nice and clear. Something like this. This is one of the old National Geographic action books, which I happen to think are terrific books and highly underrated. But this one is in absolutely terrific condition. You know, great pop-ups. If there are movable tabs, all the movable tabs work. What do we mean by a book in very good condition? Book in very good condition has been used. There may be some signs of wear, but nothing that really damages the integrity of the book, either structurally or, you know, on the pages themselves. Take a look at this, you know, blue ribbon pop-up. Dick Tracy, The Capture of Boris Arson. It's going to be difficult to actually see this, but, well, we're going to go back one actually. On the cover, you can see Dick Tracy is knocking out Boris Arson, but on Boris Arson, there are little tiny specks where the cover has been rubbed a little bit. On this pop-up, again, from Dick Tracy's shoulder running down is a fold that shouldn't be there. It is a book in really nice condition, but it is very good. It's been used, it's been read, it's been enjoyed. What do we mean by good? Well, in the book collecting world, good is not so good. Good is an average book. It may place it in a collection to hold a spot for something that you're really looking for in better condition, but it may have underlining, it may have general wear, something along these lines. Julian Ware's Tinderbox, which the cover looks pretty darn nice, but when you turn it on its side, you can see that the spine has significant wear. Some of those spirals may have detached from the pages. It is just a book in good condition. And finally, poor obviously means a book with significant damage. It may have missing pages. It may, the binding may not be good, and so on and so forth. Here's one that's actually in pretty good condition. This is the old Mickey Mouse pop-up. That's probably in very good condition. If it were in poor condition, it would look something like this, which is really not collectible. I'd be lying if I didn't say that I had some poor books in my, not in my inventory, but in collection. And what I do is I save those pieces in case I need to restore a book that comes down the line. So those are the first main thing of the two. That is condition, condition, condition. The second one is even more confusing, especially in this day and age. And that is that most people who are putting collections together really want a book that's a first edition. And it is confusing because there are two concurrent meanings of first edition. The first is a publisher's meaning. And to a publisher, a first edition is a book that is published without significant changes. And so a first edition may have a first printing and a second printing and a third printing and a fourth printing and so on, as long as the text is not substantially changed, as long as the illustrations are not substantially changed. To a collector, a first edition has a true meaning of the first printing, the very first printing. So when you talk to a collector about a first edition, and that's where the value is placed, they mean the first printing of the book. Why? Well, in the olden days, prior to about 1995, there was a real reason for this. And that is because printing plates became worn out. This is not a pop-up book. It is a 1939 book. It's Abraham Lincoln by the Doliers. It was a Caldecott book, selected as the best illustrated book of the year. This is the frontispiece of the title page of Abraham Lincoln when it was first published, first printing. 6 years later, this is what the title page looked like. And that happened because the plates wore down, because the illustrators were not present to go and tell them exactly the coloration that they wanted, and so on and so forth. This has changed in this day and age because with digital printing, honestly, I think the 1000th printing is going to look pretty much like the first printing, but still the value of books is placed in that very first printing, first edition. How do you figure out whether a book is a first edition or not? And here's where things get really, really dicey. It would be a wonderful thing for all of us as dealers, as collectors, as folks who just love pop-up books and want to find first printings of these books, if there was some standardization amongst all the publishers. But the truth is zero. There is absolutely none. There are certain basic things conceits that publishers use that you should know. Here in Robert Subuta's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, if you take a look at the very back cover, it becomes easy. It says first edition right there. The second printing of Alice dropped this little device, this first edition statement. Here's Edward Gorey's Dwindling Party. If you go and open that up and then actually open another flap, you will see this, which is a common way of identifying first printings. It's called in the trade a number line. And this one says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. When that one, that numeral 1 is in evidence, that is a first printing. What happens is that on later printings, that 1 will disappear. On a third printing, the 2 will disappear. It'll look something like this from Bert and Ernie on the Go. You see down here in the left-hand corner, there's all the bibliographic information. And when we look at it up close, it says 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. That means this is a 6th printing of Bert and Ernie. Sometimes it gets even more confusing than that. Here we have Dracula Jr. When you take a look at the bibliographic information, it not only has a number line, this one with alternating numbers, 1 on the left, 2 on the right, 3 on the left again, 4 on the right. It also says first edition. However, a third printing of this book looks like this. It still says first edition, but the 1 and the 2 are missing from the number line. So do not be deceived. This is not what collectors would refer to as a first edition, even though it says so right there. I'll show you my absolute favorite thing, then we'll go and end and open for questions. This, of course, is not a pop-up book, but this demonstrates something called points because it gets more and more difficult sometimes to actually figure out whether a book is a first edition or not. I know all of us know this book to one way or another. It's Ben-Hur by Lew Wallace. Wallace was not only an author, he was also a general in the Civil War, the American Civil War. And when you talk about points in book collecting, you're talking about some odd little abnormality in the book. Either one of the pages is misnumbered, or someone's name is misspelled, or there's some sort of typographical mistake in the book. Well, this happens in Ben-Hur. Here's the title page of Ben-Hur, and here is the dedication page. He and his wife were married for a long, long time. And in the very first edition of Ben-Hur, he says, "To the wife of my youth." Very, very sweet. His wife hated it. She said that it implied that he had been married before to a young woman when he himself was young, and that this was a second marriage. And she really laid it on. And so he, being a good husband, said in the second edition of the book, it is changed to the wife of my youth who abides with me still. So that's an illustration of a point, one of those strange things that goes into books that helps you identify whether it's a true first edition or not. There are 1,000 different ways to do this. There is no standardization amongst publishers, but one of the things you can look for, and it's available online, is Bill McBride's Pocket Identification of first editions. And this is just page after page after page by publisher that tells you exactly how they identified first editions, often during time periods, 1953 to 1974, 1974 to 1985, and so on. At any rate, if anything comes out of this, there are 3 things that I want you to remember. The first, purchase books in at least very good condition, again, which we mean are complete with no significant wear. The second thing, collectors, you place highest value on first edition, first printings. So make sure that you look for that when you can. And the third thing, thinking back to Lew Wallace and his wife, is make your partner happy. That goes a long way. Okay, I'm going to get out of this thing. Stop share. Okay, boom. I think that does it. I'll be around until the very, very bitter end for questions and anything else. Thank you all. This was great fun.
Thank you, Larry. So, for any of you who wondered where the smoky eye came from, it was a late printing of Abraham Lincoln. That's where the smoky eye came from, right there. So, Larry, I want to know how often, because at our last conference in Kansas City, we had you along with Ellen and Larry Seidman to do a little bit of an antiques roadshow kind of thing. How often do people ask you to help them appraise their books, their collection, their whatevers?
Yeah.
And how much do you want the 127 people here right now to ask you that question?
I'm totally open for questions. The fact is that as part of the business of Wonderland Books, so we do significant appraisals. But that is when somebody has a collection that is considerably valuable, and I'll travel to wherever that is and spend time there actually going and doing an appraisal for any number of different reasons. Some of them are security, some of them are passing on, some at any rate. Yes, but yeah, I'm totally open to questions. I love this sort of thing.
Excellent. It's certainly quite possible that someone might have something really kind of yummy at home, and they might want to share images or kind of get involved in a deeper conversation. So Wonderland 100 is where you can find Rakow.
There is a link on the website, I think the very last page, that allows you to get in contact with me. And it's www.wonderlandbooks1 no, I'm sorry, wonderlandbooks100@gmail.com is my email address, so anybody can reach me there.
So a question from Maria, what is the oldest pop-up book?
Oh, Ellen is going to have such fun when she comes back. There are, it depends upon what you're talking about with pop-up books. Of course, I mean, there were pop-up elements in books that go back to what, maybe the 16th century or so, maybe older. Ellen will be able to talk all about something like that, but generally considered, pop-up books for children really came about during the mid 19th century. And there was a series of those, Cinderella and Robinson Crusoe and others that were done in England during the 1850s or 60s. So in terms of children's books, which is really my area, that's as far back as true pop-ups go. Although Ellen will be able to tell you some wonderful things about books that preceded those that had pop-up elements.
I'm gonna jump back over to me for a second because I'm gonna now introduce Eugenia Yaretskaya, who is gonna lead us through this make and take. So while I'm talking, get your workspace ready. Make sure you've got your butterflies cut out if you haven't already. Get your glue. You might need your scissors a little bit more. And Eugenia, she's been working at Up with Paper and Jumping Jack Press for a while, serving as director of paper engineering, and she's got a pile of titles under her belt. She had a gorgeous Nutcracker adaptation in 2018. Late last year, she has a book about snowflakes called Flurry. And all right, here's the secret maybe you don't know about Eugenia, is that she develops piles of Halloween costumes for her family every year and shows them on the socials, and they're spectacular. So Eugenia, I'm gonna jump this over to you, and we're gonna do the scroll down because your name starts with Y. And you've got 120 some people in front of you. There we go. There you are. Go, all you.
All right. So my name is Evgenia. I am a paper engineer and designer and illustrator. And today we're going to make a little pop-up card. I know that some of you haven't really been familiar with pop-ups, and some of you have a lot of experience building them. So I try to keep things simple, but still have an element of fun and whimsy to it. So there are basic two folds that we're gonna work with. One is a step fold, and one is a V fold, like so. And we're gonna use two of these folds to create multiple layers and make that pop up, like so. This is your basic step fold, but if you cut into it, there are two step folds. Hope you can see that. Okay, so for this, you're going to need your printed 2 sheets of paper, where you hopefully have already cut out butterflies, because that's gonna take a little while. And the other piece of paper looks like this and has 2 crease lines running across. I made it so you can just connect the corners and fold. If you want to pre-crease on those lines using a pencil that does not have a tip, or a bone folder if you have experience with that sort of thing. Or in my case, I use a knitting needle. Use a ruler and pre-crease. If you don't have any of that, that's no problem. You can just connect the corners and crease. And then the other way, you're going to connect the corners and crease. This way you can see the outside over here has all the die lines and all the numbers, which I will explain in a little bit. And from this point on, we're gonna do some cutting. You will need scissors. And I'm going to show you how. The first thing you're gonna do is you're going to cut on the outer line, this big semicircle here, which is been folded, it's going to mirror. It's not going to be perfect if you're doing this way, but for the sake of quick assembly, that's what we're going to do. We're going to go down this line over here with scissors. I'm going to do that with you. Ready? All the way to the crease line over here. And now the fun begins. First, we're going to cut up this cut line all the way to the crease and stop. And then just fold it where you see the crease line. So it will look like this. Make sure it's nice and creased. And if I'm going to go too fast, please slow me down, but I'm trying to get through this presentation in 10 minutes. So the next crease line you're going to fold on is right under it. Like so, and then unfold again. So now you have one cut and two creases right here, folded over. The next line over here has a V fold on it. So we're going to fold down on this line. Right here. And then we're going to take our scissors and cut down on this semicircle over here. Right here, I just made a little cut here on this line and I folded it again. Okay, I'm going to unfold the whole thing and fold down on the last crease right on the bottom here, the biggest one that has three different pops. 1, 2, 3. The V fold, the step fold, and a combination of two, because if you continue doing this, you're going to come to a V as well. So it looks like a step, but it's actually a V. Now, from the corner of where you cut on the larger semicircle to where that crease line ends, you're going to fold over and crease. And then you're going to take your scissors and we're going to cut down on the pink lines. There are 5 of them. Again, they may not match up when you unfold it because of the nature of paper and the fact that it shifts a little bit, but it should make a pretty mirrored image on the other side. So, ready? The semicircle. 2 little straight lines where it says D. And on the B, they're slightly curved. There we go. And now that you got them all pre-cut, you're gonna fold down on the crease lines again. I'm gonna flip it upside down here. Hopefully you can see. And the V fold. And those steps. And okay. So it's going to take a little moment because at this point, our paper has been folded many, many times, and it's a little thicker than what we usually used to. Again, this is something you can also do with an X-Acto blade, following the die lines, but this is the way it is the easiest way for us to cut it and still get similar effect. So now I'm unfolded all of these back into my original state. And this is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to pop this whole thing open, bend it in half, and pop the big V fold upwards like this. And since it's all symmetrical, the pieces are just going to fall in place like this. So you have a giant semicircle in the middle of your page. And you're going to start by popping out these cuts that you made on the bottom forward. On both sides. So here they are on one side, and here they are still in there. So we're going to pop them forward. Use your fingers. You can use tip of your pencil or scissors, whatever's more comfortable. And so that's your lowest layer of pop-up. And this is where we're going to do some gluing. We're going to open this guy up. And you're going to put glue on all the parts over here that are going to attach themselves to the other page. So I'm going to use actually this purple glue stick so you can actually see where I'm putting the glue. Thank you, my 5-year-old. So I'll do really quick. I can show you where it goes. Apologies, I can't do it mid-air. Okay, so the glue is everywhere. Folds down, flat. And then your pop-up with all the pieces pops forward. Your basic structure will be standing like this. And then we're going to do some back and forth with the other V folds. There's 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to take this first V coming off the ground over here. I'm going to push it back and close up the card again. Every time you make an adjustment to your paper, you close the card, you open it again. It usually allows you to give to have the paper remember where it goes. So have a forward, a backwards, and then this next V, and pop it back. I mean, pop it forward. Sorry. Like that. And then this last one, you push back. I'm going to do this really slowly so you can see that all the pieces go back and forth. So now you have the base on which we're going to glue all the butterflies. Wherever you see purple and a letter, that marks where the butterflies are going to go. Oh, I forgot one more. There are 2 little V folds here and here. I'm going to push them back. 1 and 2. There we go. Now all of the pieces are in there. So now the sheet that has the butterfly templates, I cut out my purple ones and put them on top of the pieces that have the gray outlines with numbers. I mean, not numbers, the letters on them, pardon me. And that's what we're gonna match to the letters that are on this structure. I like to start with the largest one. It's an A. This one has a crease in the middle. So we're gonna just line it up and crease it down the middle. Then since the areas are shown in purple, I'm gonna use a different kind of glue, but I'm gonna put a dot of glue on each purple area here, right here. And I am going to add my first butterfly. Right here. Make sure the crease lines on the butterfly align with the crease line of the pop-up. That way, when you close it, it folds right in. And when you open it, it will smoothly pop back out. And here you go. There's our first butterfly. So now I choose my second butterfly, and I will choose butterfly E. Those are the two butterflies that live on the bottom here. They also have creases down the middle. So we're gonna pick out our butterflies that have E on them. And we're gonna fold them right down the middle. That's one. That's two. And there are two purple areas, one on top of the V fold right here, and one right next to it on the bottom, on the base of the card. You want to put two glue dots. And again, align the crease of the butterfly with the crease of the structure that it's sitting on. Right here. There's a butterfly E, number one, and butterfly E, number two. Here they are. Once I place them, I close my card again, make sure the glue sticks, the butterflies are in place, and all the creases are aligned. And then I open it again. Here they are. And the fun part about V-folds and putting butterfly wings on them is that they open and close in such a way that makes them look like they're flapping their wings. All right. And now we can proceed with the rest of the butterflies. Next butterfly we're going to put on is butterfly C. Those are the tiny little butterflies that live on these two little V folds right under the big butterfly in the middle. So they do exactly the same thing. I take my glue and I put a glue dot on my purple areas that have C on them. And take the wings of my butterflies and align them over here with the purple underneath. Just make sure that they don't stick out, because when you're going to close it, you want the wings to not be smooshed by the creases. So I'm going to put them on here, show you how, like that. So they're looking out like this. And then once I place them in, I'm going to close the card again, very gently, and make sure they hold in place. And the glue is keeping them in place. So next, I am going to place the butterfly in the middle. It's another one that has a crease on it. It's the butterfly F. So I'm going to grab that one. Over here, how will you see the F? it's going to go upside down. So we're gonna put some glue right on the area that says F. And we take our creased butterfly over here in half. And we're gonna unfold it. And it's gonna be upside down to this big butterfly here. It's gonna go over here. Make sure to line up its little nose over here where the antennas would grow out of with the tip of the V fold here. You don't want it to stick out further than that. So just here. There you go. It's in, its crease is lined up with the middle crease of this card. And I'm gonna close the card again to make sure everything still folds down where it should. And open again. So we have 4 more butterflies to put in. I'm gonna start with the butterfly D. Those are big ones over here. I took off my handy dandy template over here. And I'm going to put glue again where it says D. Just be careful under the tiny little butterflies. I like to do the tiny little butterflies first because they're just so much more delicate. The bigger ones are easier to place, but you can do them in different order once you get used to it. And we're gonna align the wing of the butterfly with the purple shape underneath. And like that. They're flying downwards like this. 2 butterflies. And once I align those, I will close the card again. So each step, we close and open the card. And these are the last 2, butterfly B, and it goes on the 2 sides over here. I'm gonna repeat the process, glue, butterfly, these are not creased, so we just place them right here, align them with the shape, the purple shape underneath. Hopefully they are helpful. Over here. And I'm gonna close this card again for hopefully the last time as far as the building of this card goes. Make sure not to put too much glue on it because you don't want to glue your card shut. And once you're done, you should come up with your flying butterflies.
Yeah, this is gorgeous, Eugenia. So beautifully engineered.
Thank you.
Any
Simple enough for people to put together.
Okay, no worries. Don't you worry. And quite frankly, anyone who wants to throw some claps in that chat feed, you'd be very welcome to. Because not only did she design this beautiful thing, but she also perfectly and speedily ran us through that demo. It was really good. And also, you know, I'm a paper engineer and I'm a teacher, and I saw that pattern and I thought, how is she going to teach us how to do that without scoring? So good. So, for the sake of time, and our next guy, our headliner tonight is, you know, he's on UK time, so I want to jump over, but we've got the patterns and we've got the directions now on this video. And if you are a subscriber to the Movable Book Society, and if you are not, all you have to do is go to our website, movablebooksociety.org, and subscribe at the bottom. Then you'll be on the list when I send out the email blast next week, so that you can see the video again and you can download the pattern pieces again. You can see Eugenia's very competent and precise and calm face talk you through that project. Thank you very, very much.
Very welcome.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, feel free.
Lots and lots of thank yous. Lots of thank yous and lovelies. Yeah. It's a nice time to see butterflies. Super.
Thank you.
All right. And Emily, I am yielding spotlight reins back over to you now as well. And it is time for us to hear from our headliner tonight, Duncan Birmingham. And Emily, me first, please. I wanna hold something up super quick. Because I've been a paper engineer for a while, and in the late 90s, the early 2000s, strange sound thing going on. Okay. I went to the bookstore and I'm like, I need to figure out how to make pop-up books. What book do I want to buy that's going to help me with that? And so this is the very first how-to pop-up book that I purchased. And of course, the elements of pop-up with David Carter and Jim Diaz followed quickly in its path. And since then, I've graduated on to, I haven't made it on to the edition of Duncan's book that came out last year. I feel like
it's the same book.
On, right? But I know it's there. So I sent out some incorrect information in our email because I pulled up an older sort of screen. But Duncan has 70 tutorials on his pop-up channel. He has over 100,000 subscribers on that pop-up channel. And I'm going to keep glancing back over to my computer screen over here. And he's had over 7 million views on YouTube for those how-to videos. So he's got a lot of amazing things going on. He's been teaching people how to engineer for a long time. And let me quick jump over. It sounds like maybe someone is unmuted. So let me make sure folks have muted themselves. So we've got some nice clear sound for when we jump over to Duncan. I'm not sure what that big staticky, maybe it's on my side. But Duncan, let's go over to you and let's hear what you've got to say.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, thank you for inviting me. So I'm talking about how I learned pop-up and how my teaching of pop-up has evolved. And so it all started in about 1982 when I was just finishing a course at art college, and I was hitchhiking and I got a lift with a publisher who said he was wanting to do a pop-up book and he couldn't find a paper engineer. And he explained to me a basic V-fold and basic parallelogram. And I think he probably had an example in his car that he showed me. Anyway, I said, yeah, I could understand that. I could do it. And he said, well, send him a sample spread, which I did. And so then I got a commission to do a pop-up book called The Aztecs and the Incas Pop-Up. And that is this book. And it's all, this was published in 1984. And the way it worked was it's a do-it-yourself pop-up book. So it would be each spread had 2 pages on each side that would fold out. The pages would fold out like this, and you cut the pages out, and then you'd stick the bases back to back, and then all these pieces you could cut out and stick together and make the pop-ups. And it was all very basic, simple stuff, really. It was all just V-folds. So this is V-folds. And then when I was researching it, I actually went to Mexico and I discovered the Maya. And I thought the Maya were just as interesting as the Aztecs and the Incas. So the first spread is the Maya. And then this is a basic V-fold. And you can see, hang on, if I can get this, there it is. this is a V-fold, and you can see it's got a parallelogram at the back holding it up. And the one variation I did this, I had a copy of, if I can get it there, Cubasta's Christopher Columbus, and it was the boat scene with the 3 boats, and I adapted it to make this battle scene. And that was that. And then I didn't really think about pop-up for a few years. And then in few years later, yeah, I applied to art college to do an MA. And when I was showing them my folio, I had the pop-up book in the folio. And the head of the illustration department said, "Oh, would I teach a module on pop-up to the 2nd year illustration students?" So I thought, well, I've done a pop-up book, sure, yeah, okay. So I signed up to do that. And I got Mark Heiner's book, Paper Engineering for Pop-Up Books and Cards, which is a groundbreaking book, but also quite slim. And I just couldn't find another one, you know, about the subject. So I thought, oh, well, I've done a pop-up book, I'll just write one myself. So I went home, I wrote everything I knew, and it was about 5 pages. So I just started collecting mechanisms. I'd got a few books, but I was always going in secondhand bookshops, looking in card shops, just looking for mechanisms, collecting them up. And finally, in 1997, yeah, that book that Sean just showed you, this one was published. And I didn't really understand pop-up at that point. This is a sort of menagerie of mechanisms. It's got 120 mechanisms. It's all about, you measure this, you measure that, you stick A to A, you stick B to B. It's all very laborious. I saw the whole subject as sort of a web, and it was trying to work out what is the route through the web. How do you make it into a sort of linear process? And so really it's still just V-folds and parallelograms. So whereas if you look at the contents, it just goes simple V-folds, modified V-folds, multiple V-folds, asymmetric V-folds, on and on. And then there's a whole section on parallelograms and V-folds, and so on. And then as I was posting off the final draft, I think the whole thing went through about 20 drafts. When I was sending off the final draft to the publisher, I just had this blast of insight, and I realized actually it's all about balance. And there's two types. There's converging creases, that's the V-fold, and the angles on each side of the gully balance. And there's parallel folds, that's the parallelogram, and the lengths on each side balance. And so the other thing was there's 3 rules. Every pop-up must span a gully, and it's the gully opening, that's what powers the pop-up. And then every pop-up creates gullies, and you can build pop-ups into those gullies. So that was just a major sort of revelation to me. And then the other thing I don't know how I couldn't think of it before, was that you stick down one side, you fold your piece, and you stick down one side, fold it shut, and then put glue on the other side, and you can close the base, and the whole thing finds its natural sticking position. And since it's all symmetrical, you don't actually need to measure that much. You just fold the card in half, and then any cuts you make or folds you make, they'll always be balanced. And so it just made the whole process so much easier. And then I tried that on my students. I was practicing on my students, seeing how it all worked, and it was good. It was from the early days when I was just, teaching, you measure this, you measure this, you measure this, very laborious. And the really good ones, they might do sort of 6 pop-ups in a session. And the ones who weren't so keen, they might do 3 or 4. And, if they got the measurements wrong, then it wouldn't work. Then they'd be really disheartened, and it just didn't work so well. Whereas once I worked out this new method, I could do it step by step. I'd show them you fold like this, I'd hold it up so they could see it, and then you cut like this, hold it up, and then you stick like this, and just step by step by step. And then the whole class, everyone would do 12 to a session. Anyway, that was that I understood this blast of insight about how pop-up worked. And then I needed to research mechanisms. So then I discovered eBay. somebody told me, oh, you can get anything you want on eBay. And I thought, well, what I want is pop-up books. So I started looking on eBay for pop-up books and started collecting them. And really, I wasn't collecting them for the sake of collecting books. I was really collecting them to research the mechanisms. And so then I have amassed a vast collection of 800 books or so. But anyway, I went through analyzing all the mechanisms, and finally in 2010, and that was the next book that Sean just showed you, this book. And he said there's another one. Well, there isn't another one. There's another edition of this. It's exactly the same book, but it has a different cover. It's more or less the same design, but it's got a pale blue background. It's the same size, exactly the same contents. And this time, the way I understood the whole field was different. So I worked out that there are, I call them foundation shapes. So if I hold this up, you'll see there are, where is it? There we go. There's five this side. There's five basic V folds. These are the five variations on the V fold, and this is the three variations on the parallel fold. And those, as far as I can make out, those are the only ways you can change the angles on the V fold, which will moderate the shape, but it's always one of these. It's either an acute angle V, a right angle V, an obtuse angle V, an asymmetric V, or this one, which is a pointy V. And on the parallel folds, you've got, this is a regular symmetric parallel fold. This is the parallelogram, and then this is the asymmetric. So those are the primary foundation shapes. And then from those, I worked out you could get, these are the secondary foundation shapes. So these ones are based on V folds. These ones are based on parallel folds. These ones can be based on parallel or V folds. And then these are ones with interesting movements. And so then in the book, I just went through, each of those had a spread to itself, or a bit more of a spread. So it's just showing the various permutations and how they work. There's an illustration of each one. And then the second half of the book is building techniques. And so that's showing how you can make like this. You can make small pieces that will stick into the gully, and you can use those as muscle to stick other pieces on. And so the whole second half of the book is about different building techniques that you can build onto those foundation shapes. And then the very end is it's pull strip mechanisms. So that book was published in 2010, and that was how that was organized. So then there's the way I was teaching. And so, initially I was teaching these college modules when I didn't really understand what I was doing. I was teaching measure, laborious. Got some quite nice results because each module was 8 weeks, 1 day a week, and the students had to produce a 6-spread pop-up book at the end of it. And there were some very nice results. And then that sort of evolved. So once I'd had this insight into how it all worked and that you didn't need to measure, you just folded it. Initially, I was getting them to produce something like this. So initially, I was giving them handouts with theory and some diagrams, and you can read the handout, and I'll explain it all to you. And then, all right, now you get measuring. Whereas then when I moved on to this other way of working, then I was doing it step by step, showing them, here it is, you know, you do this, then you do this, then you do this. So then they were starting to make something like this. So this would be, they'd each make their own pop-up reference book, all abstract shapes. And as we went along making it, I told them to make notes in the pop-ups about, you know, the stages they got to. So this is all, you know, stuff like this. It's just different, just different. It's just a whole reference book of different types of pop-ups that they could make. And then I started thinking, so that, yeah, that was all right. That was quite good. And then I started thinking, actually, it'd be more fun if they were actually making things. So again, they'd be quite sort of quick and easy. There'd be something like this, you know, a figure, or something like there's something like this, you know, an animal, or something like you know, this type of thing, you know, it's a you know, the face type thing. Anyway, so then we moved on to just making things, and that was how that evolved for teaching the students. And then I was also teaching. I got a couple of companies got me to teach one-day workshops for teachers, and so it's teaching teachers how to teach it. And so for them, they'd have a whole loose leaf folder full of theory in it, but also I'd give them some templates, so we could do a whole, you know, just a day of working with the templates and me talking about it. I don't really like templates. I think you learn more through experimenting with it and playing around with it. I've noticed Matthew Reinhardt on his videos, he teaches it differently. Instead of, I always work with flaps, but he uses tape. So he just cuts out the pure shape and then he sticks it down with tape, either double-sided tape or just, you know, something like masking tape. And that's the other way of working. The only thing I use for templates for is for the pull strip mechanisms. And so those, because there is a lot of measuring involved. If you get the measuring, you know, it's very laborious. If you get the measuring wrong, it doesn't quite move right. And so I always, when I'm teaching classes, I always take in a whole lot of pre-printed card for making the pull strip mechanisms. And I think there's sort of 4 basic ones. There's the basic pull strip where you just change something behind a window. There's flaps, 2 kinds of flap, you know, one going the way you're pulling, one going the opposite way. And there's a hub, so you can have fix 2 pieces of card together and one will rotate. And then there's sort of hubs and pivots, so you can pull a strip and then it will make something move around on the surface. So yeah, those are templates. I always provide templates. The other thing I always provide for workshops is books. I just take in loads of books so I can show people how these mechanisms can be used. And then most recently, I've done these workshops in, I do sort of 3 or 4 day workshops, and I've done them in Belgium, France and Spain. And again, I take a big bag of books and a lot of templates for the pull strips, but everything else is they just need scissors, card and glue really. You know, you might want a protractor or something, or compasses are useful, but basically you can just do scissors, card and glue. And then lately I've moved on to, it was in 2014, people had always been saying to me, oh, why don't you make videos of how to do pop-up? And well, I'm not a filmmaker, it's only going to be very amateurish, you know, yeah, it's not my field really. And then in 2014 I met Jane, who's a professional filmmaker, and so then we started making videos to go on YouTube. And this was 2014, and we did, I think it was a run of, we spent a weekend and we made 10. And then in actual fact, we meet up sort of once a year, and we make another 10. And so now it's grown into about 70. And I hadn't thought it was going to get so big, so I hadn't really planned it in a very coherent way. It's quite a muddly set. So just recently I've put on a load of playlists. So if you go onto the site, it's called the pop-up channel. If you go on the pop-up channel, look at the playlist, and it just gives you some sort of guide. You know, the good for beginners is just if you're just starting, or if you're teaching and you're wanting to teach people who are also just starting. And then there's other ones like good foundation shapes, how to do different sorts of figures, asymmetric shapes, things like that. And I think that's probably it. The other thing I was going to say is I'm actually going to be moving house soon. I'm moving to a smaller place, and I'm not going to have room for my whole collection. And I've got, I think it's about 80 or 90 feet of shelving with pop-up books on, and yeah, 800,000 books, something like that. And I do actually want to sell them. So if anyone's interested, though if you're in the States, you know, it'd be quite a job shifting them. Ideally, I'd sell them in large blocks rather than singly, but that's just another thing, really. So, any questions?
Duncan, that was terrific, and I'm feeling very nervous for you again about offering that announcement to this group. So hold on to your hat. We have put. I gave Kyra your email address, so if she hasn't already thrown that in the chat feed, she will shortly. So if folks are interested in contacting Duncan about his collection, getting your hands on parts of it, then that's how you would do it. The question came up, Duncan, about your pop-up channel versus having a website. Why back away from the website? Was the pop-up channel just where you wanted to focus?
I did have a website at one point, and I just wasn't doing anything with it really. I put some stuff on originally, and then the pop-up channel took over, and there's details on how to contact me. At the end of every video, it gives my email address, and so I do get quite a lot of correspondence from people there. They either leave messages on the channel or they email me directly, and yeah, I do try and answer everybody. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe I should have a website. I'm so untech that it's not really my flavor.
I totally understand. All right, so David Carter's been busy. So he asks both, where in England do you live, and have you ever worked with any of the other English paper engineers?
I live in Stroud now. I did live in Bristol until about 4 years ago. Stroud in Gloucestershire. I haven't worked with anyone else. No.
When we wrap up and we send things,
I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Okay.
Okay, now I can. No.
Okay. I think I was getting that message from Emily too. I'm not sure if it's your side or my side.
You're coming and going.
Okay.
Yeah, you're coming and going.
Emily, can you pick up with reading questions?
No, I'm not getting anything. No.
Okay. How about now?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. I think we've got I think we've got something going on. There are bugs in the world that are out to confuse our program tonight.
Right. Yeah. No, I forgot to.
Okay, there's Emily.
So there was a question about the British Library, which I asked, I think when you couldn't hear me, whether you had offered your collection there, I don't know if they would be.
I don't think they'd be that interested. There's someone called Michael Dawson. He's got a much better collection than me. He's got, you know, most of the old Meggendorfers and Nistas, all the really old ones, all in really good condition. And he used to deal in pop-up books as well. And he sold his the ones he was selling. He sold to a bookseller in Hay-on-Wye. But yeah, if anyone like the British Library wanted books, I'm sure they'd be wanting, you know, his, because I have got a lot of Bucano books and things, but they're not in great condition, and I've mostly got you know, the modern ones. I have got a lot of Cabastas as well, actually, and a lot of the old Hallmark. So I've got mostly books from the 50s and 60s, a few Blue Ribbon. And then mostly I've been collecting the modern ones. So yeah, and as far as how mechanisms work, you know, my book, this pop-up design and paper mechanics, you know, since I wrote this, the whole field is just, you know, it's gone sort of exponential. There's much more complicated stuff out there now. There's I think he's a Dutch guy. He's got a site on YouTube called Paper Paul, and he's doing amazing stuff. You know, I'm really stunned by he's so prolific and so inventive, and he's sort of working with it's not just flat planes, but it's also curved shapes, and because it's curved, there's more sort of timing to it. So everything sort of is unfolding, and suddenly it all clicks into place. It's really amazing. Yeah, I do recommend that. Paper Paul, that's the one to look at.
He's also he runs the website bestpopupbooks.com.
Oh, is that him? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a really good site. Yeah.
So Duncan, what you might also want to do, because we've had lots and lots of people who have entered in the chat feed their appreciation for your videos.
Great.
So when we send this chat out, I'm just gonna make sure you get that and see that, so you can read and appreciate all of these folks who are expressing their gratitude for your teaching.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. It is a pleasure. You know, I do really enjoy it.